Evidence clearly shows that Israel did 9/11, and that Al-Qaeda does not even exist. So what about other terrorist attacks blamed on Al-Qaeda? Let's take a look at the 7/7 bombings.
It was at 8:50 a.m. on the 7th of July 2005 that suicide bombers set off 3 simultaneous explosions on underground trains near Aldgate, Edgware Road and Russell Square. At Aldgate, the attack happened on a Circle Line train travelling between Liverpool Street and Aldgate, killing 7 people, injuring 171. Another explosion on a Circle Line train leaving Edgware Road killed 6 people and injured 163. Another bomb was detonated on a Piccadilly Line train travelling between King's Cross and Russell Square. 26 people were killed there, 340 were injured. Well, as the tube network was shut down in response to that, people turned to buses to continue their journeys that morning. But at 9:47 a.m., nearly an hour after that first explosion, another bomb went off on the top deck of a number 30 bus at Tavistock Square. That killed another 13 people and injured 110.
There are clear indications that this was another Israeli false flag. Israel had foreknowledge of the bombings. Netanyahu changed plans due to warning. British police told the Israeli embassy in London, minutes before Thursday's explosions, that they had received warnings of possible terror attacks, a senior Israeli official said. Just before the blasts, Scotland Yard called the security officer at the Israeli embassy to say they had received warnings of possible attacks, the official said. But Scotland Yard denied giving such a warning. Instead, information had been sent from Israel to the UK. Such warnings were also given before 9/11, to ensure that Muslims would be blamed. Contrary to original claims that Israel was warned minutes before the first attack, unconfirmed rumors in intelligence circles indicate that the Israeli government actually warned London of the attacks a couple of days previous. The Mossad office in London received advance notice of the attacks, but only 6 minutes before the first blast, the paper reported. As a result, it was impossible to take any action to prevent the blasts. An Israeli company, Verint, was in charge of video surveillance. Verint was contracted by the London Underground in 2004. The bombed bus had CCTV systems from the look. These CCTV systems were also supplied by Verint. Verint used to be known as Comverse Infosys, and has a history of covert operations.
Comverse insists the equipment it installs is secure, but the complaint about this system is that the wiretap computer programs made by Comverse have in effect a back door through which wiretaps themselves can be intercepted by unauthorized parties. Adding to the suspicions is the fact that in Israel, Comverse works closely with the Israeli government and under special programs gets reimbursed for up to 50% of its research and development costs by the Israeli Ministry of Industry and Trade. But investigators within the DEA, INS, and FBI have all told Fox News that to pursue or even suggest Israeli spying through Comverse is considered career suicide. And sources say that while various FBI inquiries into Comverse have been conducted over the years, they've been halted before the actual equipment has ever been thoroughly tested for leaks.
On 7/7, the CCTV cameras at the underground didn't function like usual and had very suspicious behavior. When they got to King's Cross, in terms of the available footage, although there were quite a few cameras at King's Cross station, is it right that the only cameras that were recording for the relevant time was a camera in the tunnel? There were 76, it was a temporary system. King's Cross Underground had a temporary system in place. 76 cameras moving in sequence from 1 second at a time. Fortunately for us, at the appropriate moment, between 8:30 and 8:50, it sat for 20 minutes on that one camera, and that allowed us, at that period they came through and we got the first sighting. It's likely that Verint deliberately manipulated the CCTV, to make sure that, 1. The blamed Muslims would be identified when they entered the underground. 2. No other footage of the Muslims would be available. The CCTV camera on the bus didn't work at all. But the investigation received a serious setback when it was discovered the CCTV cameras on the bus that blew up were not working, so detectives will not get vital images of the bomber. The bus bombing happened before the office of ICTS, an Israeli security firm, which was also involved in 9/11. A Jewish explosives electrician left the bus just before it exploded.
None of this explains why this man, Richard Jones, who had explosives experience, got off the bus a few seconds before it exploded.
The most serious allegation made by conspiracy theorists is that you actually planted the bomb on the bus and left just before it exploded.
Pass. I don't have an answer for that because I think it's so ridiculous. Anybody who knows me, would not associate me with anything like that.
But what about his explosives experience?
Yes, I did work in an explosives factory. I served my apprenticeship there for 5 years from 1960 to 65 as an electrician.
The Mossad agent Yuval Aviv has accidentally admitted on television that Israel is responsible.
It's easy to put a truck bomb, as we did, as happened in London, and happens in Iraq or Israel on a weekly basis. As we did, as happened in London.
So what about the blamed Muslims? They were likely hired as actors for a terror drill. At 7/7, a terror drill with the same scenario was taking place.
The thing that concerns me is that what are we doing for the thousands of men and women actually who are in London working? And I say that because at 9:30 this morning we were actually running an exercise for over a company of 1,000 people in London based on simultaneous bombs going off precisely at the railway stations that happened this morning. So I still have the hairs on the back of my neck standing upright.
To get this quite straight, you were running an exercise to see how you would cope with this, and it happened while you were running the exercise?
Precisely. And it was about 9:30 this morning. We planned this for a company, and for obvious reasons I don't want to reveal their name, but if they're listening they'll know it. And we had a room full of crisis managers for the first time they met. And so within 5 minutes we made a pretty rapid decision, this is the real one. And so we went through the correct drills of activating crisis management procedures to jump from slow time to quick time thinking and so on.
Well, that's all.
Today we were running an exercise for a company, bearing in mind I'm now in the private sector, and we sat everybody down in the city, 1,000 people involved in the whole organisation, but the crisis team, and the most peculiar thing was we based our scenario on the simultaneous attacks on the Underground and mainline station. So we had to suddenly switch an exercise from fictional to real. And one of the first things is, get that bureau number. When you have a list of people missing, tell them. And so it took a long time.
Just to get this right, you were actually working today on an exercise that envisioned virtually this scenario?
Almost precisely. I was up until 2 o'clock this morning because it's our job, my own company, Advisor Consultants. We specialise in helping people to get their crisis management response. How do you jump from slow time thinking to quick time doing? And we chose a scenario with their assistance which is based on a terrorist attack because they're very close to a property occupied by Jewish businessmen. They're in the city, and there are more American banks in the city than there are in the whole of New York. A logical thing to do.
Note that Jews are implicated again in the organization of this drill.
Very close to a property occupied by Jewish businessmen. They're in the city.
As part of the exercise, the tricked Muslims had to dress up as terrorists and record martyrdom videos. They're clearly reading from scripts with which they are unfamiliar.
So fight against the enemies of Allah. Our blood flows across the earth. Muslim blood has become cheap. Where are those who will avenge the blood of our children in Palestine and the rapes and massacres of our sisters in Kashmir? As for those of you who have been affected by this reminder, give your lives for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's cause.
The videos were distributed by Az-Zahab. This organization pretends to be the propaganda branch of Al-Qaeda, but is in fact fully Jewish. It's led by Adam Gadon, a Jew.
Listen to a terrorist threatening his own country.
The streets of America shall run red with blood.
He was a suburban California kid, a lover of heavy metal, who became one of the most wanted men on the planet, the grandson of a Jewish doctor, Adam Perlman morphed into Adam Gadon, the American mouthpiece of Al-Qaeda.
September 11th demonstrated that America is not invincible.
It has been proven that the videos are produced by Intel Center. Intel Center is led by Ben Vinsky, a Jew. The Muslims were then told to deliver mock bombs at underground stations. Their behavior indicates that they did not expect to die. The terrorists bought return rail tickets, and pay and display park tickets, before boarding a train at Luton for London. None of the men was heard to cry Allah Akbar, God is great, usually screamed by suicide bombers as they detonate their bomb. Additionally, 2 of the bombers had strong personal reasons for staying alive. Jermaine Lindsay's partner Samantha Luthwaite, 22, mother of his 1-year-old son, is expecting her second baby within days. Mohammed Siddiqui Khan's wife Hasina, mom of a 14-month-old daughter, is also pregnant. Remember that the CCTV cameras were manipulated to identify them entering the King's Cross station. Passports were planted to make sure they would be identified as the perpetrators.
A few days after 7/7, the police said they'd found vital evidence in the wreckage.
We have since found personal documents bearing the names of 3 of those 4 men, close to the seats of 3 of the explosions.
But if the men blew themselves up, how did these documents survive?
When the body blows up, now everything is destroyed. The body is turned into pieces. How come these whole documents were remained intact? Now this is something that I cannot understand.
For Dr. Nassim, it's too similar to a suspicious find after the 9/11 attacks, in the wreckage of the Twin Towers.
If you go back to 9/11, the aeroplane and that blew up everything, the metal melted, but the passport was found intact.
Although the hijacker perished, along with everybody else on board, his passport survived. A few days after 7/7, a driver's license in the name of the bomber was found in the wreckage of the bus.
The one who boarded the bus blew up, but his all identification papers were lying safe. Now it seems to me is one organization is writing all these stories because they're very similar.
According to court testimony, forensics suggest it's likely the driver's license wasn't on the bomber's body when the bomb went off. Like other documents recovered from the wreckage naming the bombers, the license was relatively undamaged.
The Israeli embassy and Mossad had foreknowledge. CCTV cameras were manipulated by an Israeli company. The bus exploded in front of an Israeli security firm. A Jewish explosives electrician left the bus just before it exploded. Jewish businessmen organized an identical terror drill. Responsibility was claimed through the Jewish As-Sahab. Israel did 7/7